We thought it would be nice to reconnect. Family should stick together, right? I stood in the doorway of my small apartment in Boise, Idaho, staring at the two people I never expected to see again. My daughter Kelly and her husband Brian stood there with forced smiles plastered across their faces, looking like they had just stepped out of a department store catalog. Kelly wore a cream-colored blazer that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, and Brian had his arm draped protectively around her shoulders. 10 years. It had been 10 years since I last heard my daughter's voice. 10 years since she walked out of my life without a backward glance. My name is Marianne, and I am 57 years old. For most of my adult life, I worked as a medical records clerk at a small community hospital. The work was steady but unglamorous, the kind of job that kept the lights on and food on the table, but never left much room for extras. I raised Kelly on my own after her father left when she was 3. I gave her everything I could, which admittedly was not much by most standards, but it was honest, and it was earned. Kelly had always been ambitious, always reaching for something more. I understood that drive, even admired it, but somewhere along the way, my modest life became an embarrassment to her. The turning point came when she met Brian during her junior year of college. He came from money, real money, and suddenly everything about me was wrong. My clothes were outdated, my car was too old, my apartment was too small. I was not the kind of mother she wanted to introduce to her new circle of friends. The breaking point happened at her college graduation. I had saved for months to buy her a nice watch as a gift, something special to mark the occasion. When I arrived at the ceremony, Kelly pulled me aside and asked me to leave. She said I looked out of place, that Brian's parents were there, and she did not want them getting the wrong impression about her background. She handed back the watch and told me she would call me later. She never did. For the first few years, I tried. I sent birthday cards, Christmas gifts, voicemail messages that went unreturned. Eventually, I stopped. The silence became its own kind of answer. I learned to rebuild my life around the empty space she left behind. I found comfort in small routines, in my co-workers at the hospital, in the quiet satisfaction of paying my bills on time and keeping my modest home clean and organized. And then, 3 weeks ago, everything changed. I had been buying lottery tickets for years, just one ticket every week when I stopped for gas. It was my tiny rebellion against practicality, my $5 dream that one day things might be different. I never expected to actually win. But on a Tuesday morning in early October, I checked my numbers and felt the world tilt sideways. I had won $18 million. I did not tell anyone at first. I sat in my car in the gas station parking lot, staring at the ticket, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it. The rational part of my brain kept insisting it was a mistake, that I had read the numbers wrong, that this could not possibly be real. But it was real. I verified it 3 times before I finally drove home, and sat on my couch for 2 hours, just breathing. The next few days passed in a strange blur. I contacted a lawyer, set up meetings with financial advisors, made decisions about trusts and investments that I barely understood. I kept going to work, showing up at the hospital every morning like nothing had changed, because I needed time to process what this meant for my future. I told my supervisor I would be retiring at the end of the month, but I did not explain why. Nobody needed to know yet. Except somehow, Kelly found out. I still do not know how the information reached her. Maybe it was mentioned in a local news article. Maybe someone who knew us both saw my name and passed it along. Maybe she had been keeping tabs on me all these years despite the silence. However it happened, she knew. And now she was standing at my door, acting like the last decade of abandonment had never occurred. "Mom," Kelly said, her voice dripping with artificial warmth. "You look amazing. I have missed you so much." I studied her face, searching for something genuine beneath the performance. Her eyes kept darting past me into the apartment, taking inventory, calculating. Brian shifted his weight, his smile never quite reaching his eyes. They looked nervous, eager, desperate even. Good. Is that right? I said, my voice flat. You missed me. Of course I did, Kelly said quickly. I know we lost touch for a while, but I have been thinking about you constantly. Life just got so busy, you know how it is. But Brian and I were just saying how important family is, how we needed to make more of an effort to stay connected. The lies came so easily to her. I wondered if she even believed them herself, or if she knew exactly what she was doing and simply did not care. Behind her carefully applied makeup and designer clothes, I could see the woman who had handed back my graduation gift and told me to leave. That memory had not faded, not even slightly. Come in, I said, stepping aside. We should talk. They settled onto my worn couch while I made coffee in the kitchen. Through the doorway, I could hear them whispering to each other, their voices low and urgent. I took my time with the coffee, letting them stew in whatever conversation they were having. When I finally brought out the mugs, they immediately fell silent and painted those false smiles back on. Your place is so cozy, Kelly said, accepting the coffee. Very quaint. Quaint. The same word she had used years ago when she told me she was ashamed to let her college friends see where she grew up. I remembered her 15th birthday party, how I had scraped together money for decorations and a small cake, how she had been mortified when her wealthy classmates saw our cramped apartment. She made me promise never to volunteer at her school again. It has suited me well enough, I said, sitting in the armchair across from them. For 57 years, I have made do with what I had. Well, that is what we wanted to talk to you about, Brian said, leaning forward. He had that smooth, rehearsed quality that came from years of networking and making deals. Kelly has told me so much about you over the years. I feel terrible that we have not had a chance to really connect as a family. More lies. Kelly had probably told him I was dead or irrelevant, or some convenient fiction that explained away my absence from their lives. But now I was suddenly worth remembering, worth the drive to Boise, worth the effort of pretending. She talked about me, did she? I asked. All the time, Brian said without missing a beat. She is so proud of you, how hard you worked to raise her on your own, all the sacrifices you made. The word sacrifices hung in the air between us. I thought about the double shifts I worked to pay for her braces, the way I wore the same coat for 8 winters so she could have new school clothes, the countless times I ate cheap ramen so she could have proper meals. Kelly stared into her coffee mug, unable to meet my eyes. Things have been difficult for us lately, Kelly said finally. Brian's business hit some rough patches. We have been struggling to keep up with expenses. There it was. The real reason for this visit, laid bare without even the courtesy of building up to it gradually. They wanted money. They needed money. And they thought I would simply hand it over because we shared DNA and a complicated history. I am sorry to hear that, I said. What kind of business are you in, Brian? Real estate investment, he said. It has been tough with the market fluctuations. We overextended ourselves on a few properties, and now we are in a bit of a bind. A bind, I repeated. That sounds stressful. It is, Kelly said, finally looking at me. We actually had to sell our house last month. We are staying with Brian's parents right now, and it has just been really hard. His parents keep making comments about how we should have been more careful, more responsible. It is humiliating. The irony was not lost on me. Kelly, who had been so concerned about appearances and status, was now living under someone else's roof and feeling the sting of judgment. Part of me felt a small flicker of sympathy, the muscle memory of maternal concern. But it was quickly smothered by the memory of her telling me I was an embarrassment, of the decade of silence, of the birthday cards returned unopened. We heard about your good fortune, Brian said, his voice carefully casual. Congratulations, by the way. That must have been quite a shock. It was, I said. Still is, honestly. So we were thinking, Kelly said, speaking faster now, eager to get to the point. We were thinking that maybe we could help each other out. You have this windfall, and we have experience with investments and managing money. We could help you make smart decisions with your winnings, and in the process, we could get back on our feet. Get back on our feet together, Brian added. As a family. I sipped my coffee slowly, watching them over the rim of my mug. They sat there looking hopeful and desperate. Two people who had calculated that I was their easiest mark, their softest touch. They had no idea who I had become in the 10 years since Kelly walked away. They still saw me as the woman who would give everything and ask for nothing in return. "How much do you need?" I asked. Kelly's eyes lit up. "Well, if we could get around 500,000, that would let us pay off our debts and get a fresh start. We would pay you back, of course, with interest. This would just be a temporary loan between family." $500,000, a staggering sum, thrown out casually like they were asking to borrow $20 for gas. I thought about the years of silence, the unopened cards, the graduation ceremony where I was told to leave. I thought about the daughter I raised alone, who grew up to be ashamed of where she came from. "That is a lot of money," I said. "We know," Kelly said quickly. "But you have 18 million, Mom. You could spare it easily, and it would change our lives. It would give us a chance to rebuild, to start over. Is not that what family does? They help each other?" The question hung in the air, heavy with expectation and entitlement. I set my coffee mug down carefully on the side table, taking my time, letting the silence stretch. "Let me think about it," I finally said. The relief on their faces was immediate and obvious. They had expected resistance, prepared arguments and emotional appeals, and my willingness to consider their request caught them off guard. Kelly actually smiled, a genuine expression that reminded me briefly of the little girl she used to be, before ambition and status became more important than love. "Really?" she said. "You will think about it?" "I said I would," I replied. "But I need some time. This is a big decision." "Of course," Brian said, standing up quickly. "Take all the time you need. We are just grateful you are willing to consider it. Why do not we take you out to dinner tonight? Our treat. We can catch up properly, talk about everything that has been going on." I almost laughed at that. They were broke enough to need $500,000, but confident enough to offer to pay for dinner. The confidence of people who had always assumed money would somehow work itself out, that someone would always be there to catch them when they fell. "Dinner sounds nice," I said, because I wanted to see how far they would take this performance. "There is a steakhouse downtown that I have always wanted to try but could never afford." "Perfect," Kelly said. "We will pick you up at 6. After they left, I sat in my quiet apartment and felt the full weight of what had just happened. For 10 years, I had mourned the loss of my daughter. I had grieved the relationship we would never have, the grandchildren I might never meet, the family bonds that had been severed by shame and silence. I had spent countless nights wondering what I could have done differently, how I might have been a better mother, whether I deserved the abandonment I had received. But sitting there in my modest living room, watching the afternoon light filter through my curtains, I felt something shift inside me. The grief began to transform into something else, something harder and clearer. Anger, yes, but also clarity. They had shown me exactly who they were, stripped away any pretense that this reunion was about love or family or anything noble. They wanted my money, and they were willing to play act affection to get it. I picked up my phone and called my lawyer, a woman named Patricia who had been helping me navigate the complexities of my lottery win. "Patricia, it is Marianne," I said when she answered. "I need to ask you something about estate planning." "Of course," she said. "What is on your mind?" If I wanted to make absolutely certain that a specific person could never inherit anything from me, never make any claim on my estate, what would I need to do? There was a pause on the other end. "That is a fairly specific question. Is there someone in particular you are concerned about?" My daughter, I said, and saying it out loud made it real. I want to make sure she can never touch a penny of this money, no matter what happens. Patricia did not ask why, which I appreciated. She was professional, thorough, and understood that my reasons were my own. We will need to draw up very specific documentation, she said. A will that explicitly excludes her, possibly a trust with ironclad language. I will also recommend sending a formal letter stating your intentions, something that establishes a clear record of your wishes. That way, if anyone tries to contest it later, there is documented proof of your state of mind and your deliberate choice. How long will that take? I can have something drafted by tomorrow morning. We will need to meet to sign everything and get it properly witnessed and notarized. Can you come to my office at 9? I will be there, I said. After I hung up, I sat with the decision, testing it for any remaining doubt or guilt. But there was none. Kelly had made her choice 10 years ago when she handed back my graduation gift and told me to leave. She had made it again with every unreturned phone call, every ignored birthday card, every year of deliberate silence. And she had made it one final time when she showed up at my door with her hand out and her husband at her side, confident that I would be too grateful for the attention to see through their scheme. That evening, I got dressed for dinner. I put on my best outfit, which was still shabby compared to Kelly's designer clothes, but respectable enough. I did my makeup carefully, taking time with each step. When Brian's car pulled up outside at 6, I was ready. Dinner was an elaborate performance. They took me to the most expensive restaurant in Boise, a place with white tablecloths and waiters who moved like dancers. Brian ordered wine, expensive wine, and Kelly kept touching my hand across the table, manufacturing intimacy that had never existed between us. We have been thinking, Kelly said as we waited for our entrees. Once we get things sorted out financially, maybe you could come stay with us for a while. We are looking at houses in a really nice neighborhood, plenty of space for a guest room. Would not that be nice? We could make up for lost time. That does sound nice, I said, cutting into my steak. It was perfectly cooked, melting on my tongue, worth every penny they were spending on this charade. We could take trips together, Brian added. Europe maybe, or a cruise. You have probably never had the chance to travel much, right? We could show you the world. They painted pictures of a future that would never exist, promises they would never keep. I let them talk, nodding in the right places, asking questions that encouraged them to elaborate on their fantasies. All the while, I was thinking about the meeting I had scheduled with Patricia tomorrow morning, about the documents that would ensure Kelly could never claim a single dollar of my winnings. This has been lovely, I said, when dinner ended and we stepped out into the cool October evening. Really lovely. Kelly hugged me, and for just a moment, I let myself remember holding her as a baby, how small and perfect she had been, how certain I was that I could protect her from anything. But that baby was gone, replaced by this woman who saw me as nothing more than a convenient source of funds. We will call you tomorrow, she said, to see what you have decided. Yes, I said, tomorrow. I met with Patricia at 9 the next morning. Her office was in a modern building downtown, all glass and steel, the kind of place I would have been intimidated to enter just a month ago. But money had a way of changing how you moved through the world, even when you were still getting used to having it. I have drafted everything you requested, Patricia said, sliding a folder across her desk. This will state explicitly that Kelly is excluded from your estate. There is also language that addresses any potential challenges she might make, and I have included a letter that explains your reasoning in your own words. You will need to write that part yourself. I opened the folder and read through the legal documents. The language was dense and formal, but the meaning was clear. Kelly would get nothing. Not now, not ever. There is one more thing I want to add, I said. Can we set up something where a portion of the money goes to charity, specifically to organizations that help single mothers? Patricia smiled. That is a lovely idea. Yes, we can absolutely do that. In fact, it will make your will even more difficult to contest. It shows clear intention and thoughtful planning. I spent the next hour signing documents, having them witnessed by Patricia's staff, getting everything properly notarized. When it was done, I felt lighter somehow, like I had set down a burden I had been carrying for years without realizing it. My phone buzzed as I walked back to my car. It was Kelly. "Mom, hi. Just checking in. Have you had a chance to think about what we discussed?" Her voice was bright, cheerful, completely artificial. I could hear Brian saying something in the background, his words muffled but urgent. "I am still considering it," I said. "These things take time." Of course. We totally understand. We were just wondering if maybe we could come by again. We could bring lunch, maybe talk through some of the details." They were getting impatient. 3 weeks must have seemed like an eternity when you were sleeping on someone else's couch and facing mounting debts. I could hear the desperation creeping into Kelly's carefully controlled voice. "Actually, I have been thinking about what you said last night," I told her, "about taking trips together, making up for lost time. I would like that. Why don't you come over on Saturday, around noon? We can talk about the future." The relief in her voice was palpable. "That would be perfect. We will bring something nice for lunch. See you Saturday, Mom. I love you." She hung up before I could respond, which was just as well. I did not trust myself to say the words back, not even as part of the act I was performing. Some lies were too big to speak out loud. The next few days passed slowly. I went to work at the hospital, finished out my final shifts, said goodbye to coworkers who had become friends over the years. They threw me a small retirement party in the break room, complete with a grocery store cake and a card everyone had signed. It was modest and genuine, so different from the performance Kelly and Brian had staged at that expensive restaurant. "You deserve this," my supervisor Denise said, hugging me. "All those years of hard work. I hope you do something wonderful with your retirement." "I plan to," I said, and I meant it. On Friday evening, I went to a hardware store and bought something I had been thinking about since Kelly's visit. A small video camera, the kind designed for home security. It was easy to set up, connected to my phone, and would record everything that happened in my living room. I positioned it on my bookshelf, hidden behind a row of paperbacks, with a perfect view of the couch where Kelly and Brian would be sitting. I also made copies of all the legal documents Patricia had drawn up. I put them in a folder, along with a letter I had written explaining my decision. The letter had not been easy to write. I had started it 3 times, each version getting more honest, until finally I had something that captured the truth of what I felt. Saturday morning arrived cold and bright. I cleaned my apartment, not because it needed it, but because I needed something to do with my hands. At 11:30, I changed into comfortable clothes and made a pot of coffee. At noon exactly, Kelly and Brian knocked on my door. "We brought sandwiches from that deli you used to like," Kelly said, holding up a paper bag. "The one near the hospital where you worked." I had not mentioned that deli, had not talked about where I used to eat lunch during my breaks, which meant she had done some research, asked around, tried to gather details that would make her performance more convincing. The effort would have been touching if it were not so calculating. They settled onto the couch again, the same spots as before. Brian was wearing khakis and a polo shirt, trying for casual but still managing to look expensive. Kelly had on jeans and a sweater, but I could see the designer label peeking out at the collar. "So," Brian said, after we had eaten the sandwiches and made small talk about the weather, "have you had a chance to think about our situation?" "I have," I said. "I have thought about it a lot, actually. And I have made some decisions." Kelly leaned forward, her eyes bright with anticipation. "We are so grateful, Mom. You have no idea what this means to us." "Before we get into that," I said, "I wanted to ask you something. Kelly, do you remember your 15th birthday party?" She blinked, confused by the sudden change of subject. "My birthday? I guess so. Why? I spent 3 weeks planning that party, I said. I saved up money from every paycheck, bought decorations, ordered a cake from the bakery instead of making one myself because I wanted it to be special. I invited your friends from school, the ones you said were so important to you. Kelly's smile faltered slightly. Mom, I do not know what this has to do with... You cried afterwards, I continued. When everyone had left, you came to me and said you were humiliated, that our apartment was too small, that the decorations looked cheap, that you wished I had not tried so hard because it just made everything worse. I was 15, Kelly said defensively. Kids say stupid things. You were ashamed of me, I said. And you never stopped being ashamed. Even now, sitting here, I can see you judging this apartment, calculating how quickly you can get the money and leave. Brian shifted uncomfortably. Kelly's face had gone pale. That is not fair, she said. I came here to reconnect, to rebuild our relationship. You came here because you are broke, I said flatly. You came here because you need money, and you think I am desperate enough for your attention that I will give it to you. The silence that followed was heavy and awful. Kelly looked at Brian, her mouth opening and closing, searching for words that would not come. Brian's expression had hardened, the friendly mask slipping to reveal something colder underneath. We have been going through a difficult time, he said carefully. Is it so wrong to turn to family for help? Family, I repeated. Tell me, Brian, how many times did you and Kelly visit me in the last 10 years? How many phone calls? How many birthday cards? He had no answer to that. I will make you a deal, I said, reaching for the folder I had prepared. I will give you the money you asked for, $500,000. But first, I want you to do something for me. Kelly's eyes lit up again, hope replacing the defensive anger. Anything, Mom. What do you need? I want you to look at these, I said, opening the folder and pulling out photographs. They were pictures from Kelly's childhood, printed from the digital copies I had saved over the years. Kelly at age 6, gap-toothed and grinning, wearing the Halloween costume I had stayed up all night sewing. Kelly at 12, holding the trophy from her spelling bee, looking so proud. Kelly at 17, getting ready for prom in the dress we had found on sale at a department store. I want you to look at these pictures, I said. And I want you to tell me when exactly I stopped being worth knowing. Was it when you met Brian? Was it when you went to college? When did I become something you were ashamed of instead of someone who loved you? Kelly stared at the photographs spread across my coffee table. Her hands were shaking slightly, and I could see her throat working as she swallowed hard. Brian put his hand on her knee, a gesture that might have been supportive, or might have been a warning to stay focused on the goal. Mom, I never meant to hurt you, Kelly said finally. I wanted a different life. Is that so terrible? Wanting a different life is not terrible, I said. Erasing the person who gave you that life is something else entirely. I pulled out another set of papers from my folder. These were the birthday cards I had sent over the years, all returned unopened, all marked with "Return to Sender" in Kelly's handwriting. I had kept every single one. Do you remember sending these back? I asked, laying them out. There are 10 of them. One for each year you decided I did not deserve to be part of your life. Kelly's face crumpled. For a moment, I thought she might actually cry, might show some genuine emotion. But then she straightened her shoulders and looked at me with something like defiance. You do not understand what it was like, she said. Growing up the way we did, never having enough money, always being the poor kid at school. Do you know what that feels like? To be constantly reminded that you are less than everyone else? Yes, I said quietly. I do know. I lived it every single day so that you would not have to. But I did have to, Kelly shot back. Every time someone made fun of my clothes or my lunch or where we lived, I had to live it. And when I finally found a way out, when I finally found someone who could give me the life I wanted, You expected me to just stay stuck in that world, to keep being reminded of everything I had escaped. There it was, the truth beneath all the performance and pretense. I was not a person to Kelly. I was a symbol of poverty and struggle, something to be left behind and forgotten. The fact that I had sacrificed everything to give her opportunities did not matter. She saw only her own pain, her own shame, her own desperate need to be someone different. "So you did escape," I said. "And how did that work out for you?" Brian stood up abruptly. "I think we should go." "Sit down," I said, and something in my voice made him obey. "We are not done yet." I pulled out the final documents from my folder, copies of the will Patricia had drawn up, clear and official and absolutely final. "I had these prepared a few days ago," I said. "This is my will. It states explicitly that you, Kelly, are excluded from my estate. You will inherit nothing from me. Not now, not when I die, not ever." Kelly grabbed the papers, her eyes scanning the words frantically. "You cannot do this." "I can, and I have. It has been signed, witnessed, and notarized. It is completely legal and binding." "But the money," Brian said, his voice rising. "You said you would help us. You said you would give us the 500,000. "I lied," I said simply. "Just like you lied about wanting to reconnect. Just like Kelly lied about missing me. I wanted you to understand what it feels like to be used, to have someone dangle hope in front of you and then snatch it away." Kelly was crying now, real tears this time, streaming down her face. "How can you be so cruel? I am your daughter." "You were my daughter," I said. "But you gave up that right 10 years ago when you told me to leave your graduation ceremony. You gave it up every time you returned my cards, every time you ignored my calls, every time you chose your pride and your shame over having a mother who loved you." Brian pulled Kelly to her feet. "This is insane. You are punishing her for being honest about her feelings." "No," I said, standing to face them. "I am protecting myself from people who only want me for what I can give them. You are not here because you love me or miss me or want a relationship. You are here because you need money and you thought I would be too grateful and too desperate to say no." "We could contest this," Brian said, waving the will. "We could take you to court." "You could try," I agreed. "But you will lose. I have documented everything. Every returned card, every ignored phone call, 10 years of deliberate abandonment. No judge will look at that history and decide you deserve my money." Kelly was sobbing now, her careful makeup running in dark streams down her face. "I am sorry, okay? Is that what you want to hear? I am sorry I hurt you. I am sorry I pushed you away. I just wanted to be better, to be more than what I came from. And I wanted a daughter who loved me," I said. "I guess we are both disappointed." I walked to the door and opened it. "You need to leave now." Brian tried one more time. "If you would just listen, we could work something out. Maybe not 500,000, but something to help us get back on our feet. You have so much money now, it would not even make a dent." "Get out," I said. They left, Brian supporting Kelly, who was crying so hard she could barely walk. I watched them get into their car and drive away. Then I closed the door, locked it, and stood there in my quiet apartment, my heart pounding. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Kelly. "Please, we are desperate. You are my only hope." I blocked her number. Then I blocked Brian's. Then I sat down on my couch and waited for the guilt to come, for the maternal instinct to override the anger and hurt. It never came. Instead, I felt something I had not felt in years. Relief, clarity, freedom. But I was not done yet. The next morning, I called Patricia again. "I need to make one more change to my estate planning." "What kind of change?" she asked. "I want to set up a scholarship fund," I said, "for kids from low-income families who want to go to college. specifically for kids whose parents work in healthcare. I want it to be substantial, fully funded, something that will help dozens of students every year. That is a wonderful idea, Patricia said. How much were you thinking? $5 million, I said. The same amount I would have had to give Kelly if I had not seen through their scheme. I want that money to help kids who actually appreciate the opportunities they are given. Patricia was quiet for a moment. You know, she said finally, that is one of the best uses of lottery money I have ever seen. One more thing, I said. I want to name it. The scholarship should be called the Marianne Education Fund, not hiding behind some vague charity name. My name, so Kelly knows exactly what she lost. The scholarship fund became my new purpose. I worked with Patricia and a team of advisors to set it up properly, to create selection criteria and application processes. I wanted it to be meaningful, to actually make a difference in young people's lives. Within 2 weeks, we had everything in place and announced it to the local news. The story got picked up by several media outlets. Lottery winner establishes major scholarship fund for healthcare workers' children. They interviewed me, and I talked about growing up with limited means, about raising a daughter alone on a hospital clerk's salary, about understanding the struggles that working families face. I did not mention Kelly by name, but I made sure everyone knew I had a daughter who was not involved in the scholarship fund. The reporter asked if I had other family, and I said simply, no, not anymore. 3 days after the news story aired, Kelly showed up at my apartment again. This time, she was alone. I watched her through the peephole, debating whether to open the door. She looked different. Thinner, paler, with dark circles under her eyes. She was wearing jeans and a plain t-shirt, none of the designer clothes from before. She knocked again, and I heard her voice through the door. Mom, please. I know you are in there. I just want to talk. Against my better judgment, I opened the door but left the chain on. What do you want, Kelly? I saw the news, she said, about the scholarship fund, $5 million to help kids like I used to be. Kids who appreciate what they are given, I said. Yes. That was supposed to be my money, Kelly said, her voice breaking. You took what should have been mine and gave it to strangers. It was never your money, I said. It was mine. And I chose to give it to people who actually need it and will actually be grateful for it. I need it, Kelly said desperately. Brian and I are getting divorced. He blamed me for losing the money from you. His parents kicked us out. I am living in a motel, Mom. I have nothing. I looked at her through the gap in the door. This woman who had once been my baby girl, my whole world. Part of me wanted to feel sympathy, wanted to soften and offer help. But I remembered the returned birthday cards, the graduation ceremony, the 10 years of silence, the calculated visit with Brian, when she thought I would be an easy mark. You made choices, I said. Just like I am making choices now. How can you be so heartless? Kelly asked. I am your daughter. Does not that mean anything to you? You told me it did not mean anything to you, I said. For 10 years you told me that every single day with your silence. Now I am just agreeing with you. I closed the door. Kelly pounded on it for a few minutes, crying and pleading. But eventually, the noise stopped. When I looked through the peephole again, she was gone. My phone rang an hour later. It was a number I did not recognize, but I answered anyway. Marianne, this is Patricia. I wanted to give you a heads up about something. Kelly and her husband filed a lawsuit this morning. They are claiming you coerced them, that you are not of sound mind, that the will should be invalidated. I sat down slowly. Can they do that? They can try, Patricia said, but they would not win. We have everything documented, including the video recording from your apartment when they visited. I reviewed it, by the way. The audio is crystal clear. Their entire conversation is on tape, including Brian calculating how much money they could get from you. I had forgotten about the hidden camera. In all the drama of the confrontation, it had slipped my mind completely. "So we are protected?" I asked. "Completely," Patricia confirmed. "In fact, that video makes their lawsuit look even worse. It shows premeditation on their part, clear intent to manipulate you for financial gain. If anything, it strengthens our position." After we hung up, I retrieved the camera from my bookshelf and watched the footage. There it was, all of it. Kelly and Brian on my couch, their whispered conversations about how much they could ask for, Brian coaching Kelly on what to say to make me more sympathetic. Their faces when I revealed the will, the anger and desperation that they could not quite hide. I made copies of everything and sent them to Patricia. Then I made one more copy and put it in a safe deposit box at my bank. Insurance, just in case. The lawsuit was dismissed within 3 weeks. The judge reviewed all the evidence, including the video, and threw out Kelly and Brian's case with prejudice, which meant they could not try again. They were also ordered to pay court costs, adding to their already substantial debt. I heard through the grapevine that Brian had moved back in with his parents, and Kelly was working 2 jobs trying to make ends meet. Part of me wondered if she thought about me, if she regretted the choices she had made. But mostly, I did not think about her at all. Instead, I thought about the scholarship fund. The first applications had started coming in, and reading them was both heartbreaking and inspiring. Kids who worked part-time jobs to help their families, who studied late into the night in crowded apartments, who dreamed of becoming nurses and doctors and medical technicians. Kids who reminded me of myself at that age, before life got hard and dreams got complicated. I established an anonymous selection committee and gave them complete authority to choose recipients based on merit and need. I did not want to be involved in the individual decisions, did not want to play favorites or second guess. I just wanted the money to go where it would do the most good. 6 months after I won the lottery, I attended the first scholarship award ceremony. 20 students received full 4-year scholarships, enough to cover tuition, books, and living expenses. They stood on stage with their families, many of them crying, all of them glowing with joy and possibility. I sat in the back row, watching, feeling something I had not felt in a long time. Pride. Not in Kelly, or in anything to do with her, but in myself. I had taken something that could have been wasted on people who did not appreciate it, and I had turned it into something meaningful. Something that would ripple outward and touch hundreds of lives over the years to come. One of the recipients, a young woman named Sophie, whose mother worked as a hospital janitor, gave a speech about what the scholarship meant to her family. "This is not just about me," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "This is about believing that people like us deserve a chance, that where we come from does not have to define where we are going." I thought about Kelly, about the shame she felt for where she came from, about how desperately she wanted to leave it all behind. And I thought about Sophie, who stood on that stage with pride, not shame, talking about her mother's hard work and her family's sacrifices. That was when I knew I had made the right choice. A year after winning the lottery, my life had settled into a rhythm I never could have imagined. I had moved to a nicer apartment, nothing extravagant but comfortable, with large windows that let in plenty of light. I volunteered with organizations that helped single mothers, offering financial literacy workshops and mentoring. The scholarship fund was thriving, having already helped 40 students in its first year. I was having coffee one Saturday morning when my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something made me answer. "Marianne, this is Denise from the hospital. I hope you do not mind me calling." "Of course not," I said, surprised but pleased to hear from my former supervisor. "How are things at work?" "Busy as always," Denise said, "but I am actually calling about something else. We had a woman come to the emergency room last night. She was there for exhaustion and dehydration. When they asked for emergency contact information, she gave your name." My stomach dropped. "Kelly." "Yes. She said she did not have anyone else to call. The hospital needed to reach someone, and I saw the name come through the system. I wanted to give you a heads up before they contacted you officially. Is she all right? I asked, hating myself for caring but unable to stop the question. Physically, yes. They gave her IV fluids and ran some tests. Everything came back fine. But Marianne, she looked rough, really rough. The kind of tired that comes from more than just one bad night. After I hung up with Denise, I sat with the information. Kelly was sick, alone, desperate enough to give my name as an emergency contact after everything that had happened. The maternal instinct I thought I had buried stirred uncomfortably in my chest. I did not go to the hospital. Instead, I called Patricia. I need advice, I said. Kelly was in the emergency room last night. She listed me as her emergency contact. I think she might try to use this as a way back in. Do you want to see her? Patricia asked. No, I said immediately. But I am worried she will show up here, or try to guilt me into helping her by claiming she is sick or desperate. Would it help if I handled any communication? Patricia offered. If she contacts you, you can refer her to me. I can be the bad guy, the lawyer who will not let you do anything that might compromise your estate planning. That would help, I said, relieved. Thank you. But Kelly did not contact me directly. Instead, 2 days later, I received a certified letter. Inside was a handwritten note on cheap notebook paper. Mom, I know you probably do not want to hear from me. I know I ruined everything between us. But I am writing to tell you that I am sorry. Not because I want your money or because I need something from you, but because it is true. I was ashamed of where I came from, and I took that shame out on you. You deserved better. You deserved a daughter who appreciated everything you did for her. I cannot change the past, but I want you to know that I see it clearly now. I see what I threw away. I hope someday you can forgive me, even if I do not deserve it. Your daughter, Kelly. I read the letter 3 times, searching for the angle, the manipulation, the hidden request for money that must be buried in there somewhere. But it was not there. The letter was short, simple, almost childlike in its directness. I put it in a drawer and tried not to think about it. A week later, another letter arrived. This one was longer. Mom, I got a job at a grocery store. It is not much, just stocking shelves overnight, but it is honest work and I am grateful for it. It made me think about all those years you worked at the hospital, how tired you must have been, how much you sacrificed. I never thanked you for any of it. I am thanking you now, even though it is too late. I am not writing to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know that I am trying to be better. I am trying to be someone you might have been proud of, even if you never see it. Kelly. The letters kept coming. One every week, like clockwork. Kelly told me about her life, about the tiny studio apartment she rented, about the community college classes she started taking at night, about the therapy sessions she went to on sliding scale payment. She wrote about regret, about shame, about slowly learning to face the person she had become. I did not respond to any of them, but I kept every single one. 3 months after the first letter arrived, I drove past the grocery store Kelly had mentioned in her writing. It was 2 a.m, and through the front windows, I could see her on a ladder, stocking shelves. She looked thin, tired, focused on her work. She did not see me watching from the parking lot. I sat there for 10 minutes debating. Then I drove home without going inside. The next morning, I called Patricia. I need you to set up something for me, I said. But Kelly can never know it came from me. What do you have in mind? Patricia asked. The community college she is attending. I want to pay off any tuition she owes and create a small emergency fund in her name. But it has to be completely anonymous. If she ever finds out it was me, the whole thing is off. That is very generous, Patricia said carefully. Are you sure? No, I admitted. But she is trying. Actually trying, not performing or manipulating. And I cannot watch her struggle without doing something, even if she never knows I did it. Patricia set everything up through several layers of anonymous donations and foundation grants. Kelly would receive a letter saying she had been selected for emergency student assistance based on her academic performance and financial need. She would never know I was behind it. The letters from Kelly continued. She wrote about the strange surprise of having her tuition paid, about the relief of not having to choose between paying rent and buying textbooks. She wrote about a class she was taking in social work, about how she wanted to help families like the one she came from. I realize now that I spent so much energy running away from poverty that I never stopped to think about helping people who are still stuck in it. One letter said, "You did that, Mom. You helped people every day at the hospital, even when you barely had enough for yourself. I want to be like that. I want to be like you were." I cried reading that letter. Not the angry, bitter tears I had shed when Kelly first showed up asking for money, but something different, something that felt like grief for all the years we had lost, mixed with the smallest seed of hope for what might still be possible. But I still did not respond. I was not ready, and I did not know if I ever would be. 6 months after the letters started, I was shopping for groceries when I ran into Kelly in the produce section. We both froze, staring at each other across a display of apples. She looked better than she had at the hospital or through the store window. Still thin, still tired, but there was something different in her eyes, something clearer. "Mom," she said quietly, "I did not know you shopped here." "I usually do not," I said, which was true. I had been avoiding this store specifically because I knew she worked here. We stood there awkwardly, both of us holding shopping baskets, both of us clearly uncomfortable. "I have been writing to you," Kelly said finally. "I do not know if you have been getting the letters." "I get them," I said. "You never responded." "No." Kelly nodded, accepting this. "I understand. I just wanted you to know that I mean everything I write. I am not expecting anything from you. I just needed you to know that I am sorry." "Kelly," I said, and then stopped, not knowing what came next. "You do not have to say anything," she said quickly. "I know I do not deserve your forgiveness. I know I burned that bridge 10 years ago and then tried to rebuild it for all the wrong reasons. But I am trying to be better. Not for you or for anyone else. For me. Because I do not want to be that person anymore." There were tears in her eyes, but she was not manipulating me with them. She was just crying, letting me see her pain without trying to weaponize it. "I saw the scholarship fund," she continued, "the ceremony last year. I went and sat in the back. I saw you watching those kids get their awards, and I saw how proud you looked. That should have been me, Mom. That should have been the daughter you raised, the one who appreciated what you did for her. But I threw it all away because I was ashamed." "You were ashamed of me," I said quietly. "I was ashamed of myself," Kelly corrected. "I was ashamed of being poor, of not fitting in, of not being good enough. And instead of dealing with that shame, I projected it onto you. I made you the problem because that was easier than looking at myself." I had imagined this conversation 1,000 times over the past year. In some versions, I told Kelly exactly what she had put me through, made her feel every ounce of pain she had caused. In others, I forgave her immediately, and we rebuilt our relationship. But standing there in the grocery store, I found I did not want to do either of those things. "I need time," I said finally. "I am not ready to have you back in my life. I do not know if I ever will be ready, but I am glad you are doing better. I am glad you are in therapy and going to school and trying to be a better person." Kelly nodded, wiping her eyes. "That is fair. That is more than fair. Thank you for even talking to me." She started to walk away, then turned back. "Mom?" The scholarship fund. Those kids you are helping. That is the best thing you could have done with the money. Better than anything I would have done with it. I hope you know that. I watched her walk away down the aisle, disappearing around the corner toward the back of the store. My hands were shaking, and I realized I was crying too. I left my shopping basket on the floor and walked out of the store. I sat in my car and let myself feel everything I had been holding back for the past year. Anger at Kelly for abandoning me, grief for the relationship we had lost, confusion about what I wanted now, fear about letting her back in and getting hurt again. But underneath all of that was something else, something I had not expected. Relief that she was genuinely trying to change, not just performing for my benefit, and the tiniest flicker of possibility that maybe, someday, we might find a way forward that did not require me to pretend the past never happened. 2 years after winning the lottery, I attended the scholarship fund ceremony again. This time, 50 students received awards. The program had grown beyond anything I had imagined, funded not just by my initial investment, but by donations from others who believed in the mission. Sophie, the young woman who had given the speech at the first ceremony, was graduating now. She had been accepted to medical school and would be starting in the fall. She stopped by my seat before the ceremony began. "I never got to properly thank you," she said. "This scholarship changed my life. I would have had to drop out after my first year without it. Now I am going to be a doctor." "You did the work," I said. "The scholarship just gave you the opportunity." "That is everything, though," Sophie said. "That is what people do not understand. It is not about handouts. It is about getting the chance to show what you can do when someone believes in you." After the ceremony, I walked to my car and found Kelly waiting by the driver's side door. I had not seen her in 6 months, not since the grocery store encounter. She looked different again, healthier, more confident. "I am not stalking you," she said quickly. "I volunteer with the Scholarship Foundation now. I help with the application review process. I had no idea you would be here." "You volunteer with my foundation?" I asked, surprised. "I did not know it was yours specifically," Kelly said. "I just knew it was for kids like I used to be, and I wanted to give back. They have me working in the administrative office, reviewing financial need documentation. It has been good for me, seeing these families struggle and still fight for their kids' education." We stood there in the parking lot, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the pavement. "I finished my associate's degree last month," Kelly continued. "I am transferring to a 4-year program in the fall. Social work. I want to help families navigate the system. Help them access resources they do not know exist." "That is good," I said. "I am glad things are working out for you." "Mom," Kelly said, and her voice cracked on the word. "I know I do not deserve to ask this. I know I have no right. But is there any chance, any possibility, that someday you might want to have coffee with me? Just coffee. No expectations, no agenda. Just 2 people trying to figure out if there is anything left worth saving." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She was not the entitled woman who had shown up at my door with her hand out 2 years ago. She was not the ashamed teenager who had rejected me at her graduation. She was someone different now, someone who had been broken down and was slowly rebuilding herself into a person I might actually want to know. "Not yet," I said finally, "but maybe someday. Keep doing what you are doing. Keep being honest with yourself. Keep helping other people, and keep writing to me." I read every letter. Kelly's eyes widened. "You do?" "Every single one," I confirmed. "I might not respond, but I read them. They help me understand who you are now, not just who you were." "Then I will keep writing," Kelly said, "for as long as it takes." I got in my car and drove home, feeling something I had not felt in a long time. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the possibility of it, somewhere in the future, if Kelly continued on the path she was on, and if I could find a way to trust her again. The consequences for Kelly and Brian had been severe and lasting. Brian never recovered from the financial disaster, eventually filing for bankruptcy and moving back in with his parents permanently. His real estate career was finished, his reputation destroyed by the lawsuit and the public exposure of his attempt to manipulate a lottery winner. He worked now as a salesman at a furniture store, bitter and diminished. Kelly's consequences were different but no less real. She lost everything she had tried so hard to build: the wealthy husband, the comfortable lifestyle, the distance from her roots. But in losing everything, she found something she had never had before: authenticity. She worked 2 jobs, attended school, went to therapy, and slowly built a life based not on appearances, but on genuine effort and growth. The road back to any kind of relationship with me would be long and uncertain, and there were no guarantees she would ever make it all the way. But she was trying, and that was more than she had done in the previous decade. As for me, I had learned that money could not buy back lost time or erase betrayal, but it could be used to create something meaningful. The scholarship fund would continue long after I was gone, helping hundreds of students who reminded me of the woman I used to be. Someone who worked hard, sacrificed everything, and never gave up hope that life could be better. That was my real revenge. Not punishing Kelly for abandoning me, but building something so much more valuable than anything she had tried to take. And in doing so, I had finally become someone I could be proud of, regardless of whether my daughter ever was.